On the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is going birding every day. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Birding places that I've never been. Seeing birds that I have never seen. Birding with all my nerdy birding friends. I just can't wait to get on the road again.
Yes, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and I am once again back on the road again. Welcome to the Big Ear Podcast. I remain and still am Robert Baumander, and you, well, you're you. And thank you for being you and taking the time to listen. Today we're taking a little break from Big Ear birders and talking to a few birders I've met on the road and talked to over the past year. I think you'll find their stories fun, interesting, and maybe even a little bit inspirational. Of course, my favorite questions when meeting birders in the field are, have you seen the bird? And can you tell me about your spark bird that led you into birding so you'd be here to see this rare bird today? I spoke to birders from as far south as Point Pelee National Park and as far north as Thunder Bay. I even have a special guest at the end that you've heard about but have never heard from. And now, against my own personal desires to keep on talking, I'm going to keep this short and just get on with the show. First up is Terry, who I met in Waterloo while looking for a golden-winged warbler. It's always fun to meet new people in the field, especially when they are seeing a new bird for their life list. Talking to Terry, and we're seeing a golden-winged warbler, which is really cool. And is that a lifer for you?
That is a lifer for me.
Well, congratulations. And you said you've only been birding since November of 2024, and you've just moved to Waterloo. So that's a nice learning curve. You can get to know all the birds in the area. But back in November of 2024, when you started birding, what got you into birding? Was it a specific bird? Did you have this spark moment when you saw a specific bird, or was it some other inspiration to become a birder?
My spark bird probably predates me birding, which maybe isn't quite the definition of a spark bird. Mm-hmm. But for a while, I used to live in Australia, and I didn't really pay attention to nature when I lived. Like, I grew up in Canada, I didn't really pay attention. Then I moved to Australia. Everything's new. Mm-hmm. You're suddenly paying attention to everything. And I saw a little superb fairy wren, which is a little blue bird. They're around there all over the place, but they're just very common, very beautiful. And that got me starting to pay attention and look at birds. And then when I moved back to Canada, I started going to the surrounding conservation areas, going to like talks and guided walks. On one of those, I'd always taken pictures of just whatever I saw in nature. And one of those, the guide said, "Hey, have you ever thought about getting into birding?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know." And so she was running a course on birding, and I took the course, and it was on winter waterfowl. And I had always thought that there's no nature left in winter. Like, it's winter, there's snow, everything's gone. But then I learned about, there's all these birds that come down from the Arctic, and they're only here in the winter. So that got me out looking at the birds. And then once you start to get hooked on like eBird and all the tools out there are great. I guess everyone I meet is so friendly. Like, everyone's so generous with their time, sharing their knowledge. It's a really easy thing to just immediately fall into.
Well, that's fantastic. My wife went to Australia years ago, and it was before she was a birder too. So she enjoyed the birds she saw there, but she didn't really pay as much attention as she would have liked to. I have to ask her if she's seen the fairy wren. That's a nice way to get into birding. And we would go out for walks in the winter before I was a birder. Days that were so cold that I wouldn't even have gone outside for 2 minutes. And we'd go down to the lake to look at ducks. And she was like, oh, look, stop here. And I was like, are we walking or stopping? And so I was that guy. I don't know if you've heard the term SOB as it relates to birding.
Okay. I don't know if I've heard that one.
So I was an SOB, which is a spouse of a birder.
I see. Yep.
I meet a lot of birders who the spouse just stays in the car and does the driving. Oh, yeah. I was that guy, and now I'm the one who runs out first thing in the morning to see a golden-winged warbler.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun chasing. Gives you something to do. Mm-hmm. A cool thing with the fairy wrens, I'm not sure. I'd have to double check the research on this, but it was looking at them. They did some studies on, because there's a lot of parasitic egg laying in their eggs, so they will sing a secret song to their eggs before they're hatched. then they'll repeat that song, and only because their children were the only ones who had it when they first laid them, and they'll repeat back that, and they'll only feed those ones.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yes, if the egg is laid in their nest and it's not theirs.
It was because it wasn't there when they were teaching the song, which is, incredible.
Bird behavior is just amazing, and it's a lifetime of study, and even the most knowledgeable birders I know don't know everything yet. Well, thank you, Terry, for your time. I appreciate it. Next up, we have Henry. Henry is a young, very enthusiastic and well-spoken young man. We met at T.J. Dolan Natural Area near Stratford, Ontario, while looking for a Eurasian collared dove. I am standing in, where am I standing? Do you know the name of this park?
T.J. Dolan.
And we are hoping, while we're talking, to see a Eurasian collared dove. And Henry was just telling me that he's only been birding for about 3 or 4 years, which is the majority of his life, I guess. And he was telling me how he got into birding and about a spark bird. So why don't you tell me the story you just told?
So I was at my local library and I was looking on their TV of events, and it said there's a birding guided tour with a group at Pinehurst Lake. And so I was really excited. I've always been interested in animals and such, so this is why I wanted to join that guided tour. But everyone canceled except for me. So the person who led that tour just gave me a nice self-guided tour of Pinehurst Lake and saw a pileated woodpecker, which was my great spark bird. It just flew out from a tree, and it was great.
That is a really amazing bird for a spark bird because it's big and very obvious, and it's one of most people's favorite birds to see any time of year. Well, that's a nice story. So what do you have planned for your life in birding? Are you going to continue to pursue birding in your education? What do you see yourself doing in the future as a birder?
Well, definitely, I would love to pursue a career in ornithology. I love migration, so studying migration with Birds Canada or LVPO or something like that. Yeah, and just continue birding as long as I can. It's a great hobby.
And possibly career.
Yeah.
And they do have at the Long Point Bird Observatory a young birders banding camp in the summer. So hopefully you'll get to do that next year.
Hopefully.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
My next guest, Ryan, is the communications manager for the Lake Regions Conservation Authority up in Thunder Bay. I met him while he was leading a group of birders during the Fall Migratory Bird Day. I joined in as I was passing through and had a great morning with a great bunch of birders. Take it away, Ryan. I am at Mission Island Marsh Conservation Area on the shores of Lake Superior, and I have met an interesting gentleman, and you can tell me your name and tell me all about yourself and what you do here.
Sure. My name is Ryan Mackett, and I'm the communications manager with the Lake and Region Conservation Authority here in Thunder Bay. And this morning we're doing our Fall Migratory Birding Day, which is an annual event we have here. It's a free event sponsored by Ontario Power Generation. And we invite the public to come out and look for birds, migratory birds. And we have local birding expert Brian Ratcliffe comes out as well and leads groups around the marsh in search of migratory birds and waterfowl.
And what are the expected migrants at this time of year?
We feel like every year we chase the migration patterns. Every year we keep this event on the same weekend. And some years it's really good. Some years we miss it by a bit, or we're a little early. Typically, a lot of migratory warblers make their way through, and a lot of the waterfowl coming down the river and along the shoreline here.
What's the rarest bird you've had on one of your trips?
Oh, geez. That's a really good question. One year we had a yellow-headed blackbird, which is really exciting to see. That was really fun to photograph.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate learning about this. This is one of those serendipitous moments where you come somewhere, look for a boreal chickadee in the morning as the sun comes up, get a perfect view of sunrise on Lake Superior, and then meet a whole group of birders.
Absolutely, and that's sort of what we hope for. This is a birding hotspot for locals, so if you're a birder in the area, you know, typically you make your way to Mission at some point throughout your birding adventures. And there's a good chance that we're going to meet a lot of them today, as well as members of the public who maybe aren't typically birders or are just interested in getting into birding. We want to make sure that it's something that anybody can come out and enjoy.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, the story of the willow ptarmigan from Rock Point Provincial Park, as told by a nice young couple of birders I met on the beach while watching this incredible rare bird. I am in Rock Point Provincial Park, where a lot of very happy birders just saw a willow ptarmigan, which is ridiculously out of its territory. It should be in the high Arctic by now, but it decided to come grace us with its presence down here in Western Ontario with some of my favorite birding buddies, looking at a willow ptarmigan, including Andrew Keaveney, who for this is an Ontario lifer. And all these years birding, and he finally found one, and he didn't have to go up north. And it's a nice warm day, unlike most times you see willow ptarmigan in Ontario. And I've just run into a couple of young birders who got their lifer ptarmigan. Introduce yourselves.
I am Ella Hicks, and
I'm Peter Van Zanten.
Nice to meet you both. This has been a very exciting moment for you guys.
definitely,
Absolutely, yeah. One of my questions usually is, what was the most amazing bird you've ever seen? And I'm assuming this is it?
Yeah, this is definitely up there.
Yeah.
What was it before this one?
Maybe that ibis that we saw.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, this is our
Fluffy
white face.
ibis, yeah.
There have been more down here this year.
Yeah.
4 years ago or so, you got into birding. What got you into birding? Was there a moment or was there a bird? Like, I always like what your spark bird was. Why don't we start with you?
I put up a bird feeder because I wanted to practice photography, and and I started taking pictures of all the birds that came in my feeder, and I started like IDing them, and like I had the Ontario bird book, and so I started like checking them off and stuff. And then what really got me into it was a northern flicker.
Oh, yeah.
He flew into the maple tree that's in my backyard, and I took pictures, and I had no idea what it was. So he was like weirdly patterned and stuff, and I'd never seen one before. So I ID'd it, and that's what really got me into it. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it.
And you got the binoculars and the camera.
Oh yeah,
and
I started buying all the gear after that, and I downloaded Merlin and eBird.
Very nice. And what's your story?
Well, I actually haven't been into birding nearly as long as her, but I've just been, I just started going along with her, and I've just slowly started picking things up and getting more and more excited about new species. I don't have a camera or anything, but I'm just along for the ride.
Well, don't worry. Once you save the money, you'll be buying the gear too. It's required in order to learn more, because there's only so much you can see with your eyes.
Yeah.
And you can just stop and look at one bird and study it. And that's what I was talking to you earlier about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Just south of Sudbury, I met Yasmin in Robinson Lake Park, and she has an interesting story to tell about how she got into birding and how it influenced her educational and career aspirations. So I'm in Robinson Lake Park?
Yes.
Well, I remembered. And who am I with today?
My name's Yasmin.
You just showed up where I happened to pick a spot to go birding today as one of my stops, and you're local to Sudbury?
Yeah, I moved here for school. So.
And what are you studying in school?
Zoology.
Well, that kind of connects with birds.
It does, yes.
And will you eventually have a career in a zoo or out in the field?
So I'm kind of wanting to be a wildlife rehabilitator. I have like 3 years of experience in that, and the long-term goal will be to have my own practice eventually. But for the time being, after I'm done school, I'd like to pursue a master's and then work with different conservation groups and rehab groups. That's
well, one thing I discovered about zoos a few years ago is that their main thing is wildlife rehabilitation, in addition to showcasing animals so people can learn about animals, but they do a ton of rescues and rehabilitation. Growing up, I didn't think that's what zoos did, but a lot of people have a misconception that they're just taking animals and nothing more.
I think because I've also worked at when we had our local zoo here. It's not here around anymore, but I do think that there is like that misconception, and a lot of zoos do have the facilities to rehab native species, and especially zoos like the Toronto Zoo as an example that showcase native species. Most of them were orphans or for species that just couldn't have been released back into the wild.
That's exciting. And as far as birding, you came to the park today to bird. Unfortunately, you said you forgot your binoculars, which is always a very frustrating thing.
Yeah, but it's all right.
So tell me about your journey into birding, how it connects to your career in zoology.
Yeah, so like I've always liked to go out and explore nature. I've always loved animals, and I think birds specifically I kind of got more into in university. I think it was just like I've always had baseline knowledge, but biodiversity is something that's always intrigued me, and avian diversity is always so vast and so diverse in comparison to mammalian or reptile biodiversity. So it's just like something that's very easy to pick up on. In comparison to like seeing mammals, it's a lot trickier. Reptiles, even more so because it's a lot more seasonal. So, but with birds, there's always birds year round, always so many different species and color morphs, and it's the species that are present is dependent on the season, and you can also see like the difference in habitats, and you'll notice different species and stuff like that, and it's just really easy to see that with birds, and it's why I really enjoy it a lot. I also enjoy tallying up all the species that I see and stuff like that.
A little bit of a lister, like many of us big ear birders.
Yeah, I love doing that, especially at the end of a birding trip. I like to look and say, count all the ones I saw and like compare that to previous trips and stuff like that. So even a place like this where I've been here enough times because it's quite close to where I live, it's always still nice to, you never know what you're going to see.
So tell me about birding in Sudbury.
I think what is cool is most species of birds that you'll find in Ontario can be found throughout. Like there's obviously lots of exceptions, but I feel like a lot of warblers and a lot of like the oriole and grosbeaks and stuff like that, they can be found throughout Ontario, which is really cool. So you don't have to like travel to like specific places. I think in Sudbury, what's cool is that we have like a lot of different types of habitats here because of the mines and everything. It's very rocky. But then if you go further north, like by Valcaron, it's like just farmland and valleys. And like their species that I've seen is like the eastern meadowlark. That was like, I got a lifer there just this year. And then bobolinks, like I've seen lots of those nest there too. And then we also have lots of wetlands too, which is always also really good for biodiversity. So yeah, it's always a lot of different species to see.
Well, that's very nice of you to share all that with me. You were like the perfect first person of my trip to run into. Thank you very much for sharing.
Of course.
And now we return to my local patch in Brantford, where I discovered a hidden gem of a birding spot not far from home that I seem to be the last person on all of Brant County to hear about. I met with Taylor, her daughter, and her father at the trailhead of the bird path this spring, and learned of the dedicated effort that went into creating this wonderful trail. So introduce me to yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Taylor, and I have been bird watching for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid. I actually started bird watching back when I was in elementary school, and it was my grade 8 teacher that got me into bird watching. So I remember, I always really liked bald eagles. That was kind of the bird that got me into bird watching. And he started by taking a couple of us out at recess and teaching us birds in the school yard. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. And I remember my parents ended up working with him to buy me my first set of binoculars for my grade 8 graduation. And yeah, I've been bird watching since then.
And you've not discovered, but created an incredible trail right here in Brantford. And tell us where we are. What is this place called?
Yeah, so we're on a place that we have named the Bird Path. And it was back during COVID when all of the trails closed all around us and there was nowhere to hike. And this just happened to be in May, right, during spring migration. And obviously I was quite upset that I couldn't go to Long Point, couldn't go to Pelee or anything that year. So we decided to make our own trail down not too far from where we lived. This area isn't really owned by the city or anyone. So it was just kind of a
virgin forest.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a perfect place to build a trail. So started just kind of bushwhacking and creating this kind of meandering path back in the woods. And since then, it's become quite the community staple here. And a lot of people now come here to hike.
I think I'm the last person in Brantford to even have discovered this. And only because you reported a bunch of warblers one morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, where is this?
Yep.
And hiked the other way on the old trail many times.
Right.
And I've come this way a little bit, but not into the woods because I didn't think that was anything. And now it's like, I'm coming here all the time.
Yeah, though there's honestly a lot of species here that I tend to see every year. So this year, I think one day I counted up to like 16 different warbler species. had a yellow-throated vireo, black-billed cuckoo the one day. Like I get a wide variety of things that I see here.
In fact, the day we came, we did get to see the yellow-throated vireo.
Oh, cool. That's exciting.
How far does this even go? I'm not sure when I walked on it the first time I got all the way or even part of the way.
Yeah, it goes back a couple kilometers in behind the Brantford dump. We would love to continue the trail farther eventually to make a full loop. So right now it is there and back type of trail. And obviously the first couple kilometers are a little more worn in because that's the stuff that people tend to do more often. And that's where people tend to hang all the birdhouses.
That was one of the most astonishing things when I got here, is not that there's a couple of birdhouses, there's hundreds.
Yeah, so that's actually quite the story. When we first started the trail, my dad is quite the woodworker and decided to start making birdhouses for the trail. And he had made probably 50 or so birdhouses, and we were painting them and decorating them. And then that was when things started to catch on in the community a little bit, and people were starting to add some more birdhouses of their own. And then one day we came down to the trail and some kids had taken baseball bats and destroyed every single birdhouse on the trail.
Oh my goodness.
It was terrible. We were all devastated. And
I can imagine.
Didn't really know what to do. We were like, well, like we can't rebuild this whole trail. Like we're just so discouraged. So I ended up making a Facebook group and posting it in like the Ask Anything Brantford group, and got so much community support from people who said, let us help rebuild the bird path. So I ended up making a community event called Let's Rebuild the Bird Path. And
oh, I wish I had been part of that.
yeah, this was just a couple years ago now. So we picked a day, it was like the middle of winter, and we're like, hey, people come down to the trail, you know, bring a birdhouse, hang it up. I ended up ordering Tim Hortons for everyone, so we had hot chocolate and Timbits, and we had hundreds of people come down to the trail with birdhouses.
That is fantastic.
It was so special. Since then, obviously, it's gotten a lot more popular, and there are now 400 plus birdhouses along the trail.
That is an incredible project. And the building of the trail, how did your father, the strong silent type back there, go about it? What different techniques to actually create it?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. That's more for you.
Yeah, well, it started out with just trying to pick a path of least resistance. And then just kind of walking on it. Anywhere there was obstacles, we would use chainsaws, hand saws, rakes, shovels, and anything, and just started cutting a path that weaved its way along the river.
And it's a very nice location too, because you can see the river from various spots, and there's also some little wetlands and bogs around. We had a solitary sandpiper the day we came.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a green heron that lives at the pond too.
Yeah, we saw the green heron. But the solitary sandpiper, that was a nice surprise, because I said to Sue, let's go down there and see if there's any sandpipers.
Yeah.
First thing she said, is that a solitary sandpiper? So that was just fun to discover all these little offshoot paths. Now, the offshoot paths were those ones you also created?
Yes. Yeah, a couple of them are just kind of loop backs to make it not all the same.
How many years did it take?
I would say it was probably 3 to 4 years before it was very recognizable as a path.
Yes.
And now it gets wider and wider and more worked in. You know, usually by now I've had to come out and whippersnipper, but it's so well used that we haven't had to do that yet this season.
Does the city know about this? And if they
do.
I'm just wondering if they are even willing to promote it in their... No, apparently not. Very upset about that.
She's quite upset about it. Yeah, as far as I know, as far as we've kind of discovered, they don't really want anything to do with the land down here.
We're not 100% sure who owns the land. We've had some people look into it. This used to be a glue factory back in the 1950s. And it closed down, and you can see the foundation further up. But since then, some of the local residents tell me that it used to be owned by the Grand River Navigation Association, which, as far as we know, doesn't even exist. So we've contacted both the city and the Grand River Conservation, but nobody claims really that it's theirs. The city has helped because further back, the dump is there, and the city does own the property that goes to the river. So they've done their best to keep it clean back at that far point, because years ago when there was no trail, there was garbage everywhere. And then I think it was last year They came out every day to clean. They sent people out every day to clean up garbage so that nothing was blowing onto the trail and towards the river, which was really nice.
It would be nice if this could become part of the conservation lands
It
and
sure
be
would.
protected.
It sure
Is that something you're making an effort towards?
We're trying.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
It would be nice to be part of the Grand River Trails.
Yeah, and I've tried contacting like Grand River Conservation before, and unfortunately, like no one has ever even gotten back to me, which is too bad.
Well,
so you never know. That's kind of our goal. I'd love to see that happen, but.
so what's the rarest bird you've seen on this trail?
Yeah, I got some pretty good photos of a Wilson's.
We had an indigo bunting living just back.
Do you have any nesting birds here that you're aware of?
Yeah, so in the houses, we normally get house wrens. That's kind of the most common. As far as nesting birds, pretty sure there's also quite a few tufted titmouse that are here all year long.
Hey, you a young little bird watcher?
She's going to
Are you
be.
going to be a bird watcher like Mummy?
She doesn't know
She's
yet, but she's
non-committal
going to be.
on that.
We have 2 screech owl boxes that have been built and donated.
So yeah, when the original destruction of the trail happened, we ended up having Hobbitsea, if you've heard of Hobbitsea in
No.
Brantford. No. Oh, they're amazing. So they do a lot of wildlife rescue in the area. Yeah. So they were the ones that ended up donating the 2 owl boxes for us.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations on this immense project. This is something that, as a birder and a conservationalist, I find warming every time I see a story like this. Well, thank you for taking me on this little tour of your trail.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, our special guest. Well, it's Sue, of course. I've talked about Sue often during the past few years, right here on this very podcast, but you've never heard her side of the story. Yes, Sue, the long-suffering spouse of a rabid birder, who has had to put up with my 2 major big years and running off at the drop of a rare bird alert to chase birds for my life list. I'm presenting this last segment completely uncut, as if you were listening to it live, as we were literally on the road driving to pick up some native plants and go birding on the Currie Tract one fine June day. Well, our final guest on the Big Year podcast on the road is the talked about but never heard of Sue, who's finally consented to talking about her spark bird and little history of birding and the frustration of birding with me.
Well, I didn't know I had to talk about other things.
And, well, we'll see how it goes. And we are actually on the road because we're driving to a little flower garden festival thingy. And this was the perfect time to corral Sue to speak finally. Yes, you do. She's like the characters in sitcoms that you always hear of but never see. So finally she is consented. So here we go. And of course the subject is always your spark bird. So Sue, I leave it to you to tell me about your spark bird and how you became an avid birder.
It's not going to necessarily be just a spark bird.
Some people say a spark event.
Yeah, or I'll tell you a couple things. If you want nice stories. I guess I always liked birds and animals, and I remember when I was in high school, I'd always try and sneak up on the wild Canada geese in the pond near our house, trying to take pictures with my little brownie camera, and I had no hope because those geese saw me coming and took off. So where's my spark? More of a spark bird would be many years ago in Etobicoke. I was out walking in a little forested area near my house, and I saw 2 birds on the ground, brilliant red, dark wings, and I think I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder if that's the scarlet tanager. And this is, of course, before the internet, so I had to commit to memory what these birds looked like, get myself to a library, get out a book, find them, and that's what they were. So like, wow, isn't that cool?
And those were the first real birds that made you think, wow, birds are interesting. I didn't even, other than the Canada geese. Now, at that point, had you already been to Africa and Australia?
No, this is the next part of the story. So yeah, so even seeing those birds, it's not like I went and said, oh, I must go look at birds all the time. I just enjoyed that moment. And because that would have been in, I don't remember, 1998 or 7 or something like that. And then in 1993 is when I went to Africa with my friend, and we were just going on safari, and I'm just looking forward to, lions, zebras, elephants, that sort of thing. Didn't even have binoculars. And then we get there, and without even trying, there's birds everywhere. And it's like, oh, look at these cool birds. Oh, isn't that neat? And I kept having to say to my friend, oh, let me see the binoculars. I want to see. Probably drove her crazy. And then that still didn't even get me to be a birder yet. Because then it was a couple years later, it was the Etobicoke night school classes. There was one for bird watching. And that's when I said to my friend, like, oh, you want to do this? This sounds neat. And we did. And we did it for several years. And so that's what really got me into the birding once I did the class. And Garth Riley was my teacher.
And Garth Riley is a friend to both of us ever since. And we see Garth and his partner Nancy all the time, rare bird sightings. Sue doesn't come to the rare bird sightings as often as I do, but if it's a good one and a close one that...
Oh, now you're letting me in when I'm not there. All right, I'm going.
That's what happens when you're on the road. You have driving situations.
So you missed out on me saying, oh, for F's sakes.
As I was saying, I can remember what I was saying, Sue will come to some of the rare bird sightings with me if they're local or if it's part of our birding outing. But when something really crazy shows up in North Bay, she's having none of it.
Nope.
In 10 kilometers, take a slight right turn onto McQueen Shaver Boulevard.
Thank you, Siri. Any other things you want to say about the experience of birding with me? Because we haven't heard your end of the big year stories, especially going back to 2012.
You sure you want to hear it?
Well, clean it up a bit.
I think what I remember the most, because you were so new at birding, you would take these pictures and they wouldn't, the bird might be really far away or it might be out of focus, and then you'd be on the road and you'd maybe, I can't remember, did you email them to me?
Sometimes.
Yeah, you weren't always there because I'd be probably cursing you and muttering when you weren't there. And I'd be looking at this bad picture and I don't know what that is. And there was so much of that it's like, oh my God. So it tried my patience at times.
I remember sitting on the couch, putting the pictures on the TV.
Yes, I do
and
remember that.
Looking at them with binoculars to get a better idea of what they were, because though Sue had been birding a lot longer than I had, she wasn't as familiar with all the birds that I was seeing in Texas and Arizona and places like that. So we had to figure them out together at times. I would come home with a bunch of pictures and hadn't known exactly what birds I had seen if I was especially birding on my own a lot of the times. A lot of times I had guides, but I needed help too. And Sue was pretty good at getting an idea of where to look in the field guide. And we had our big, what's the name of that field guide, the big one?
I don't remember.
Well, we had our coffee table size.
Like Richardson's or some guy's name. I can't remember.
Field guide had lots of pictures of Eastern North American birds. So we were able to figure them all out eventually. And then, of course, I didn't really tell her the extent of the big year I was doing in 2012. It started off with
in 2012? With that one?
Yeah, that one.
Not the most recent
that
one.
I was going to be traveling all across North America after the baseball season and taking extra time during the baseball season. But the 2022 big year started off with me having some extra money and deciding I had never seen all of Canada, so I'm going to, over the course of the year, visit all the provinces. And that's what I told Sue. But as I was planning it, it turned into, wait a second, no one's ever done a Canada big year before, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I thought it was like he was just going to go, oh, I'm going to go to BC for a week, and then, a couple months later, oh, I guess I'll go to Newfoundland or something. Yeah, that wasn't what it was.
But it all turned out well, and now...
With you stupid drivers! Passing on double lines, and I am speeding. There, you include that in my yelling.
See, that's when you have...
I didn't swear.
Driving situations on the road. There's two sports cars chasing each other, passing into oncoming traffic over the double yellow line.
And I am going
speeding.
I am going 90, not even 80.
So they're going about 120 in an 80 zone. So maybe there's an OPP guy up ahead. Well, you finally know who Sue is, and
Yes, I'm real.
she's a real person. She's not like, I have a girlfriend, but she goes to another school, so you can't meet her type of situation. Well, thank you, Sue, for doing this for me. I appreciate it.
You're
very
welcome.
much. And now on to the rest of the show.
Well, the rest of the show is just me talking. And what do I wish to talk about? Bird names. Yeah, kind of a esoteric subject, but I can't stop thinking about how strange the minds of ornithologists must have been back in the 1800s when they were discovering and classifying all the new species they were finding. And don't get me started on the fact that in order to do this, they were shooting thousands of birds so they could examine them close enough, examine all of their field marks, and give them their names. Here, let's start with Mr. Wilson. He's a favorite of mine. Alexander Wilson was an ornithologist in the early 1800s. He had the honor of describing a number of species, including describing 5 species that were named after the man himself. And not because he wanted these birds named after him. There is the Wilson's phalarope, plover, snipe, storm petrel, and the little yellow warbler with the black cap known as the Wilson's warbler. Gee, without even thinking, we have a new name, the black-capped yellow warbler. That was pretty easy. What about the phalarope? We have red and red necks. Black masked phalarope makes sense. If you want to keep things consistent with color red, perhaps, how about red-winged phalarope? Next, we have the snipe. There are more than 25 species of snipe, and most are named for their characteristics or their breeding location. Our bird is found primarily in North America, so could easily be the North American snipe, or, say, eye-browed snipe. Let's call his plover, you decide, the gray plover, and the storm petrel, the white-rumped storm petrel. Problem solved. Before we move on, we have to give the man his due. Alexander Wilson was an ornithologist, adventurer, artist, and author. Wilson actually preferred to give descriptive names. As we see, that is not always the case. He saw a bird flitting above his head, catching bugs, yellow-green with a black cap. He named it the green black-capped flycatcher. It didn't stick. Well, partly because it wasn't a flycatcher. The fact is, this Scottish immigrant was widely regarded as the father of American ornithology. In 1808, he set off on an Indiana Jones-style adventure, covering over 12,000 miles in 7 years and illustrating prominent field marks in color of over 230 species in a style that is still used today in modern field guides. His book, American Ornithology, published in 1814, described 268 species and might have been the inspiration for Audubon's The Birds of America 30 years later. Moving on, what's with all these warblers and vireos named after cities or states that have nothing to do with what they look like, their winter or nesting grounds? Let's see what we can do to fix the situation. The Connecticut warbler becomes the slate-hooded warbler. The Kentucky warbler, my personal favorite, should forever be called the mutton chop. The Nashville warbler, perhaps, eye-ringed warbler. I think we could change the Tennessee warbler to olive-winged warbler, and the Philadelphia vireo could easily be called the eye-browed vireo. And yes, many of these were first described by Alexander Wilson, but time and imagination can fix the past. Unless you think I'm playing favorites, I am not forgetting the Canada warbler. Yes, we're in Canada and we're really proud of the Canada warbler, but it's an easy fix. How about necklaced warbler? See, renaming birds is fun. Kind of like in Quantum Leap, I'm going back in time to set right the bird names named wrong. But enough of my ranting for this episode. In the meantime, have a great summer of birding, and I'll be back on my birthday, August 16, 2026, to present to you a big year birder from Chicago, Illinois, who took on a Cook County big year, and I'll take on the mallard and the ringneck ducks. Something has to be done about them. Until then, be safe, and make sure you're discreet when you fish in the woods. Well, I am going... Oops. Well, can you grab that for me? Or maybe you can't. I don't know. I've had multiple spinal surgeries.
Oh!
So I have no problem getting down there. But sometimes it's... and with all this gear on, it's hard to get up. And don't get me started on the fact that there's a plane flying overhead. I'm just gonna wait till the plane goes by so I can have quiet in the park I'm in. I'm at Waterworks Park, actually. I think the plane is now. I think you'll find their stories fun, interesting, and maybe even a little.
But you've never heard her side of the story. I need a drink here, because this is not going well. Let's start. Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're going to start again.
On the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is going birding every day. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Birding places that I've never been. Seeing birds that I have never seen. So I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Birding on the highways and the byways. Birding with all my nerdy bird